Hello Year 5, I hope you are well. I am sharing with you today Last Chance to Vote. The penultimate is called the penultimate because it's the next best thing to being in space. On the outside it looks like any other simulator but bigger. When you walk inside though, you're standing in the biggest, best flight simulator ever built. It's a full-size replica of the Infinite Possibility command module. 5 seats, multifunctional displays, even a PlayStation 3 for the boring bits of the voyage. You can tell they think it's going to be a major attraction because it's right in the middle of the Infinity's dome and the queuing line is about a mile long. How much did Florida love strolling past the "queue takes 45 minutes from here" sign? It's like this for a lot of celebrities, she said. I read that they opened Chessington World of Adventures early once, especially for Brad Pitt and all his kids. We spent the morning on the penultimate, learning how to guide a rocket through re-entry. Of course, said Dr. Drax, on the big day, all that will be taken care by those clever people over at Drax Control. But we want you to learn how to do it, just in case. There was a monitor shaped like a window. You could see the Earth with clouds and seas rolling across its big curvy face. As the Earth got bigger, you could just make out the glowing border of space and atmosphere. Mr. Bean showed us what to do. Think of that glow, he said, as the flap of an envelope. Just slip under the flap and you're on your way home. It's as simple as that. It's all about the angle. Max, you're first. Max stepped up to the control panel and tried to steer us in. There was a kind of arrow on the screen to show you the angle. What you had to do was to keep the front of the module lined up with it. Max would probably have been all right if his dad hadn't been standing behind him saying, "Steady, Max, steady," over and over. The more he said it, the less steady Max got, until suddenly, just as the glow was getting clearer, everything changed. The Earth spun around and continents and oceans whirled into each other. Then the entire planet completely vanished and everything went black. Now you see what's happened here, said Dr. Drax, is that Max didn't get the angle just right. I told you to watch the angle, Max, snarled his dad. Why didn't you watch the angle? And as a result, said Dr. Drax, the rocket has bounced off Earth's atmosphere, a bit like when you skim a stone off the surface of the sea. My father, by the way, was rather wonderful at skimming stones. His record was 20 bounces. Through the window, there was nothing but blackness punctuated by stars as we rocketed further and further into space. Florida said, "Can't we reverse?" Not now. We're drifting out of control. But we'll stop in the end. Everything stops in the end. Not in space. In space you just drift on forever. Yes, agreed Samson too. It's Newton's first law of motion, I'm afraid. Unless an external force is applied, a body will remain at rest or will continue to move at a constant velocity forever. So, said Florida, if we bounce off the atmosphere on the day, what do we do? Hold on tight and enjoy the ride, Dr. Drax smiled. But don't worry, it won't happen. Show them, Shenjian. Dr. Drax reset the simulator and Shenjian took the controls. As we got nearer to the Earth, she read out all the changes in gravity from the monitors. She's doing that just so we down on the ground can hear that she's awake, said Mr. Bean. A lot of people pass out during re-entry. Also, it's hard to move your hands. You've just got used to weighing nothing and then, ping, you weigh a ton. The blue seas and the white clouds looked so friendly and familiar. And then they were gone. The screen was filled with a blazing golden fire. We're dead again, yelled Samson too. Shenjian didn't even blink. Or perhaps the machine is malfunctioning. Shenjian just kept saying the numbers. Mr. Bean said, we're not dead and it's not malfunction. That glow is just slamming us into the atmosphere. We're moving so fast, all the little atoms on the outside of the rocket are shedding their electrons. It's a pretty thing, isn't it? Of course, you'll have no time to appreciate it when it's actually happening. Shenjian shouted, gravity 5 and rising. Samson too said, that means she's back inside the atmosphere. On your way home, Skylark, smiled Mr. Bean. Mother Earth is holding your hand. Just don't let her drop you. And the golden glow flew away like wrapping paper. leaving the blue earth looking as new as a present. All of the children had a go at the re-entry procedure. It made my fingers itch just watching them, because the fact is, the penultimate, the world's most accurate rocket simulator, is just a big version of Orbiter 4, a game at which I am a consistent high scorer. Even the control panel layout is the same. Re-entry is a task you have to master to get past level 7 on Orbiter 4. I was twitching to play, but the other dads didn't seem to be paying any attention at all. Monsieur Martinet said that watching the others reminded him of driving lessons, and the next thing they were all going on about cars. Monsieur Martinet said he drove a Mercedes, and Mr. Xanadu said that he had some Mercedes too, for midweek, you know. Samson 1 said he preferred Land Rovers because of living in the desert, and they all started on about four-wheel drive. They talked about cars as they were playing top trumps. Sometimes they made me feel like I was the only grown-up there. What about you, Mr. Digby? What do you drive? A car? But what kind? A blue one? I was trying to concentrate on the penultimate. I don't know much about cars. But you drive for a living. Surely you have to know about cars. I'd forgotten about being a taxi driver. I said, it's more about just knowing your way around town, really. The car's just tools of the trade, really. I remembered what Dad had said about taxi driving. Taxi driving is about people, not about cars. You have to be a bit of a psychologist, a bit of a tourist guide, a little bit of everything. I don't really have time to be interested in cars. I even delivered a baby once. I think probably the baby thing was going a bit far, though Dad did sort of deliver a baby once. Everyone stared at me like they were going to ask me to prove it by delivering another baby right now. Luckily, Mr. Bean told Monsieur Martinet it was his turn on the controls. Monsieur Martinet slipped inside the golden envelope just as neatly as Shenjian did. He crossed his arms and said, "Child's play." Then the screen went black and the simulator said, "Permanent fatal errors. Uh-oh, you're dead." "I don't think so," he snapped. "Not quite yet," said Dr. Drax with a smile, "but in a very few seconds, you forgot to open up your parachutes." Next up was Samson 1, who bounced off the atmosphere and into outer space. It didn't bother him. He seemed to quite like the idea of accelerating until you turned into a beam of light. Mr. Xanadu seemed more interested in trying to buy the penultimate than he was in steering it. "Such a great machine. If you sell it to me, I'll add fighting monsters and lightly clad female aliens to the simulation. It would be popular and profitable." "The simulator is part of our training programme," said Dr. Drax. "Fighting monsters is not one of our training objectives." "Oh, but with a little work," said Eddie Xanadu, "this could make you a fortune." "I already have a fortune, but thank you for your suggestion." As she said this, he hit the Earth's atmosphere hard in a kind of interplanetary belly flop and burst into flames. "Marvellous graphics," he said. "Please take a picture of me at the controls like a true taikonaut." He gave me his phone and got the children to pose and smile with him. Then it was my turn. I don't want to brag about this, but I have already completed Orbiter 4, level 50, and when you have to do re-entry while being chased by a giant squid. So it really wasn't hard for me. Even so, Dr. Drax was impressed. "Would you mind doing it again, just to make sure that it wasn't beginner's luck?" This time they tried to trap me. An unexpected meteor shower went by during the final approach. Luckily, this is a standard Orbiter 4 trap. You just have to remember that meteors have a gravitational pull of their own and correct your coordinates accordingly. If you don't, you get pulled off course. I was into the golden envelope for a second time. Afterwards, during the voting, Samson 2 asked me why I was so good at the penultimate. I said, "Don't tell anyone, but I've got a PlayStation game just like this." "You play PlayStation?" said Samson 2. "A bit. I prefer massively multiplayer online games like World of Warcraft." "These are unusual activities for it, Dad," said Samson 2. "But it turns out they're good activities for a taikonaut." Samson 2 smiled, nodded his head, and then went off and started whispering to the others. Then all the children went off to vote. I knew I was going to win. I was the only one who would be able to save them in an emergency. I did the maths in my head. Eddie and me were both on 6. That meant if I got 3, I definitely won. But I could still win, even if I only got 2, as long as the other 2 votes didn't both go to Eddie. When Dr. Drax came back in with the results, my heart was popping with excitement. "The children have decided," she said, "who is the best daddy in the world and who is going to be the best daddy in space. He got 4 votes today." 4 votes? It had to be me. I was going to space. He is Mr. Eddie Xanadu. Eddie got 10 points altogether. I came second with 6. I did ask the children about it. "I just like having my photograph taken," shrugged Florida. "But I can work the machine." "Yeah," said Samson too. "You were the best at handling the rocket, but that means you're also the best at PlayStation. We don't want a grown-up who's good at PlayStation. When people are good at PlayStation, they don't get killed for hours and hours and you have to sit and watch them and waiting for your go. We don't want some console hog. We want someone with no PlayStation skills." Now that's the scariest thing about children. They will vote to go into space with someone who is dangerously useless if it means they get longer to go on the PlayStation. And that's the end of my chapter. So I hope you enjoyed that. The next chapter that is going to be read to you guys is called "I Am Half a World Away." So I hope you're enjoying these videos, guys, and you're enjoying completing all of the cosmic work that we are setting you. Take care, stay safe, and hope to see you all very soon. Bye.